Hey everybody, Dave Johnson here again with AggressiveFun. Today we are going to be changing the battery in an iPhone 6s that has a bad battery. It won't stay charged. It'll go from 1% right after you take it off, or it'll go to 100% on the charger. You take it off, it goes down to 1% right away. Very sporadic. So it's a 6s, so it's been around for a while. Never had a new battery put in. We're going to do that today. And I bought this handy dandy little kit on Amazon. It is battery for iPhone 6s, has a 36-month warranty, and then there's Chinese. So I don't know what else to tell you. There will be a link down below for this particular one. So let's check it out. The great thing about this kit is it comes with everything. And this was actually one of the cheaper ones. And it comes with the strips. Put it down. They give you two, which is nice. And you get handy dandy instructions. Oh, it's a sun sauce. Goes with the user manual. And we have, oh, this is the kit. So I should have, there's a little device to pull the back off with. There are all the tools here. Screwdriver, suction cup, spudgers, guitar picks. I guess, do you call these spudgers too? I don't know. And the little device to poke into the little teeny hole in the iPhone itself. And then you've got the battery. Again, this is a sun sauce, 2200 milliamp hour for IP6S, so for the iPhone 6s. Standard voltage 3.82 volts, charge limit voltage 4.35 volts, max hours 8.40 watt hours. Made in China. This is supposed to be higher capacity than the battery that the phone originally comes with, so hopefully we'll get some longer life out of it. That would be a great bonus. This is my wife's phone, so putting this in and then getting more life out of it will make her very happy. So my fingers crossed that that's going to happen. So what we need to do, I know, let's still take the case off to begin with. She's got a little protective case that she uses on there. On this end, there's little teeny screws. You got to take those screws out. And one of these is ideal for that, which is this one. Well, maybe it's not. Maybe it's this one. Oh, it must be this one. With the two, is it even a Phillips? Yes, it is. So that is the right one. These are very tiny, so you want to make sure that you keep track of them. These are the kind of things that if you have carpet and you drop it, you just write it off. It's history. So there's two of them. So they are out. Okay. So you want to put this suction cup down towards the bottom here of the phone so that you can pull on it, and then you use one of these guys to get in and start it to come apart. So if you pull on it, with the, I'm using the wrong one. It's this guy. You want to use the one that has the really sharp edges for this first step, because you need to separate this top panel from the back housing. So you get it down inside there like so, and you work it around. You can see it separating, it's coming apart. Work it on the other side as well. Go around this way too. And you can see it coming apart. And then once you're that far apart, you're able to get it to separate. There are these little clips down the sides, so you need to make them pop. And if you run that down the side, both sides, kind of gently pry as you go along, and the whole phone will come apart. Okay, when you flip it up, you want to hold on to it. There's a ribbon cable that connects this section to the top plate. You want to be careful that you don't pull that apart. Okay, so once you're to this point, you need to take the screws out of this small plate on towards this bottom, and then this other plate that's up towards the top. You need to take both of those off. And they have a larger screw head, so you can use the bigger screwdriver. Again, do not drop your screws. If you've got carpet, they are history. Okay, so I take those two out. And that little plate will come right out. And you do these. Hopefully you can see that okay. Again, be very mindful of the screws. Now, the screws up here are different lengths than the screws down here, so keep them separate so that you can put them right back in to the same spots when you're done and you're reassembling. I like to keep them in their own separate little piles. So that's 3. That's 4. That's 5. Okay, so this one now will pop off. It comes right up. Put that aside as well. Okay, so then you use one of these spudgers. You want to pry the battery connector up from the board. That guy. Okay. Let me get in a little tighter here. Okay, once you have that connector out, you want to pry up the connector for the display. Okay, and once you have, oh, and there's more than one, so pull them both. Sorry, there's 3. So you pull all 3 of them. Okay. Okay, then you do these screws down at the bottom. And this end down here. Correct screwdriver. Again, Be very careful with these screws. They are different than the other screws, so do not mix them up. Do not lose them. This then comes up. That's the bar that holds the battery down on the one end. And once you have it up, so you use a screwdriver and you pull back, there's these strips that hold the battery in. You want to pull them back. And when you once you get this up and away, you then pull okay. Then this guy, you want to pull it up. You grab it and you pull it out. And you don't pull too hard, you don't want to break it, but you start it pulling. You see how it kind of shrinks? That's a good thing because you're pulling the rubber and it's deforming as you pull it, which means it's pulling away from the battery and from the case of your iPhone. And you want it, that's a good thing, you want it to pull out like that. And you want the whole thing to pull out. It's a weird process, but you want it to be like this because if you mess this step up and you don't get all of this adhesive out, it'll make it really hard to get the battery out. It's not impossible, you can still do it. It's just that this is so much easier. You know, and it makes you wonder, what engineer sat around and said, this is what we're going to do to hold the battery in. It's a stroke of genius, I'm telling you, it's just the best process ever. When you're doing this too, you want to be careful that you don't puncture the battery. That's always a really bad thing. I did a disassembly teardown one time on a lithium battery pack, and I was using an X-Acto knife and I accidentally punctured the side of the battery. Oh man, spark shot out of there and that battery was history. So be very careful. Even though this battery is old, it still has power, so you want to be careful. You don't want to let the magic smoke out or anything like that. You do the same thing with it. A little more confident on the second one since the first one went as well as it did. So clearly that's the adhesive, because once it's gone, battery lifts right out. Voila. Okay. And all you have on that puppy is the connector on the side. And this new one is just like it, connector on the side. So we're golden. So we'll set that old one aside. Now, when you put back together, they have supplied these plastic adhesive strips. You remove this blue. Okay, now remember, this is going to be really sticky now, so don't touch it. And you want to stick these on the back of this battery in the same way that the others were. And you have, same as before, you have these that fold up around the end of the battery. So you place that on there like before. Okay. You pull off these blue tabs come off as well, and they're over the top of this adhesive, which then is just like before. So if this battery ever had to be replaced, you would do the same procedure again, and they're all in place for it. Once you do that, then you pull off the pink, and you can see those strips are now in place on the back side, just like before. At this point, you want to make sure the battery connector is correct where it's going to go in place. When you put this in, you don't want to connect it right away. You want to wait. But you do want to make sure that you put it in the right position. Just like so. So it's all ready to push down on that, put it in place, and put this guy back in place. And that was these two little screws. Get them so that they're in the screw. Okay, you get the screw in the screwdriver. Find the hole. Tighten in place. Make sure you get the right screwdriver, because if you get the small one, the bigger one works for these. If you get the small one, it doesn't work nearly as well. Okay, so there you go. All that's in place. Now, again, before you plug the battery in, you want to make sure that you plug all of these in that are for the display in reverse order from before. If I can get my fat fingers out of the way so you can. Okay, so you get them lined up. It's kind of tough to get them to go back right where they go, but they will. And once you get them in the right spots, I don't know if you could hear that, but you'll actually get a snap sound from it popping in place, or you'll just get it to where they aren't floating around anymore. So at that point, you'll know that you connected them. So there we go, all connected back in place. So at this point, we're ready with all of these plugged in. We're ready to plug the battery in. And with it, you have the same issue as the other connectors. You got to get it lined up. You may have to push it back towards the battery a little bit, and it'll actually bend that flex circuit a little bit so that it lines up, and then it'll finally push in place. With that done, before I seal it back up, you want to do a check to see if it powers up, and it does. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to turn it back off. And, okay. Doesn't matter which one you start with. Nice to get the first one in there. There's one of these that's longer, the screw's longer than the others. And I just found out it's this, the hole that's furthest, closest to the edge. And you'll know that because the little short ones won't bottom out. So all those screws are back in place. Okay, on this plate, it only goes on one way. Do not reverse it. The deepest screw is on the outside towards the edge, and then this one's not, the one on the inside isn't as deep, and that's critical because the screws that came out of here are not identical. One's longer than the other one. So the longest one has to go on the inside because it has the deepest hole, and then the shorter one goes towards the outside. If you get that plate backwards, you won't be able to screw it back together. Okay, with all of that together, I can now slide the whole thing together. So you start up at the top and you slide that in first. So we're doing this in reverse of the way that it came out. So you make it so that it goes into its slots. Then you can push it down. We'll take off the suction ring because we don't need that anymore. And then you just gently squeeze around the edges. And it will slide back into place. And you can hear it, feel it clicking a little bit as it slides back in. And voila, we're together. Now, there's some gasketing material and stuff that you might have to get rid of that's on the edges. It's just okay. The last thing is to put the two little teeny screws back in, and that one requires the other screwdriver, the littlest screwdriver. Okay. Same thing with the second one. Okay. And we power up. Woohoo! Goes back in her handy dandy cover, just like so. And that's it. So that's all there is to it. I was very impressed by their kit. I had everything that I needed. They did give some extra adhesive strips in case you needed them. I didn't have to do it more than once. All the tools and everything are great. Now I also have an iFixit kit that I didn't actually realize that all this stuff was going to come with it, and it's great that it did. And I think I ended up, this one was $16.99, so it was one of the cheapest ones, and it came with all of the tools. My point is that if it hadn't come with all of those tools, I would have used the iFixit kit, which has more tools in it, and I'll put a link to it down below as well. So thanks for watching. Hopefully that was helpful. And as always, let's go find some great ideas, make some awesome products. We'll see you next time.